Hey everyone, my name is Brittany and I started studying the Bible in April of 2017. And when I started, I knew nothing about it. And there was a lot, it was very overwhelming, even stressful. So I wanted to start teaching the Bible, a basic overview of the Bible for people just starting out so that they know where to start, what's where in the Bible, and everything like that. So, this week we are doing the crucifixion resurrection. Very excited about this part. So that we know that Jesus did end up being crucified on a cross, and back then that was considered the lowest way. That's how they put to death the lowest of the lows. It was an embarrassment to be put to death that way. So when I started studying this part, I had to look up the details of the crucifixion. I'm very health-based, wellness-based, a healer, and so it was very interesting to me. So first off, I know I can't draw, but I did do a little diagram when I was studying this almost a whole year ago. So let's see if I can get it. Let's see, where's number one? All right, so number one's right here. And it says his head was bleeding from the thorns being bashed into it, his crown of thorns, sorry. And his eyes and face were swollen from being beaten. And we go to number two right here. It says his back skin was shredded and muscles were showing from the flogging and the beating with the whips or iron rod. Severe blood loss and dehydration, usually struck 39 times. And then as he was on the cross breathing, it would go up and down and it would rub against that wood, just to show you some of the pain that people don't really think of. So his back is raw, it's bleeding, skin torn, muscles showing, rubbing against raw wood as he breathes in and out. Okay. Number three. It says the nails used were 7 to 9 inches long and were driven between the radius and ulna right into the major nerve of the hand, the median nerve. Okay. So some people depict it in the hand, but most people think it was in the wrist, because if it was in the hand, the weight of it would just pull the hand off of the nail, right? If it was here, then it wouldn't, because there's extra bones, it wouldn't pull off. And plus, remember, there's a part in the Bible, I can't think of it right off the top of my head, that says no bones were broken, so it doesn't touch any bones. It goes right through them into the nerve. Okay, number four is down here. This is difficult to do this backwards. Knees flexed at a 45-degree angle, which meant his weight would be on his thighs. Number 5, feet were flexed at a 45-degree downward angle, and a 7 to 9 inch nail driven through both feet between the second and third toe bones, which severed the dorsal pedal artery. Okay, and 6. Oh, this I know. After the thigh muscles give out, the arms take the brunt of the body weight, and the shoulders dislocate, then the elbows, and then the wrist. So he's slowly dislocating all his upper body after his thighs give out. After the arms dislocate, the chest takes the body weight, which makes it elevated. In order to exhale, he must push down on his feet to make the ribs relax, but his legs are very weak. So this is where he starts not being able to breathe very well. Let's see. sorry, I was reading the back of that. Let's see, number 8. Oh, breathing becomes more difficult and the lungs cannot ventilate correctly. The oxygen in the blood decreases as the CO2 increases, which makes the heart pump faster and faster. And after a few hours of this, the heart fails, lungs collapse, and fill with fluid. So basically what's happening is he can breathe in, but he can't breathe out all the way. So there's more CO2 in the lungs. And the more CO2 you have in your lungs, your heart beats faster to try to make up for that. But the heart's a muscle too, and it gets tired, just like the rest of our muscles. And number 9. Oh. After a few hours of heart failure and lungs collapsing, dehydration, blood loss, and hyperventilation, he suffocates to death, or the heart could even explode. So that's 2 ways that it could kill you. And number 10, the legionnaire drove his spear or long knife, I can't remember exactly what it is, through the 5th interspace between the ribs, upward into the heart, and out came blood and water from the pericardium around the heart. So Jesus died of a broken heart. Okay. So now that we see it was more than just death. It was pain and anguish for 6 hours. I couldn't imagine dying in a harder way. You've got pain in every part of your body. While Jesus was being crucified, there was 2 other men being crucified with him also. My kids, it drives them crazy that there's like no information about these 2 other men. I don't know why. They are so interested in these 2 men. One hurled insults at Jesus, saying, "If you're the Messiah, why can't you take us down from here?" And the other one is telling the other guy that he needs to be quiet, that they deserve to be up there because they're bad people, but Jesus didn't. And so Jesus told that man that today he would be with him in paradise. And you can find that in Matthew chapter 27, verse 18 through 44, and also Luke chapter 23, verses 38 through 43. So as I said, Jesus was on the cross for around 6 hours before saying it's finished, or it is finished, and taking his last breath. Now when this happened, the curtain of the temple tore, and we'll get to the temple soon. It's basically in the church, it's just a long curtain that they made to divide where God is and where they are. And then there was earthquakes, there was all this stuff going on, and it was only then that some people, even some of the people that had crucified Jesus, were like, oh, he really was the Son of God, you know? Okay, so Jesus' burial. Jesus was buried in a tomb given to him by a rich man. And when he was buried, they put him in, and the priest remembered him saying that he would come back in 3 days. So they rolled a huge stone over the entryway, and they put a governor's seal on it, which was illegal to break that seal. And then they also had guards standing. And sorry. So early in the morning on the 3rd day, the day after the Sabbath, which is when everybody rests, the women, Mary Magdalene and Mary, mother of Jesus, and possibly some others, went to prepare Jesus' body with the burial spices, which was tradition back then. They saw that the stone was rolled away and Jesus' body was gone, and they get upset, crying, asking where did they take the Lord's body. And then they hear something. They hear, why are you guys crying? And they're because somebody took the Lord's body. And then this voice says, he is not here, for he is risen. And they looked, and it was Jesus standing before him. Jesus tells them to go tell their brothers, the other apostles. So they do, and most of them don't believe the women, because it sounds kind of crazy, right? Not normal. But Jesus did appear to his disciples later, proving that it was him by showing them the holes from his crucifixion. And the priest that were so against Jesus and making sure that people didn't find out he was the Messiah, paid the guards to tell everyone that Jesus's disciples broke him out of the tomb, and that's why the stone was moved. But that was the resurrection. And next week we will begin Acts, and you'll find out that Jesus was with his apostles for 40 days and spent time with them, and we'll see what all happens with them. If you want to learn more, study more about what we talked about this week, you can look at Matthew chapters 27 and 28, Mark chapters 15 and 16, Luke chapters 23 and 24, and John chapters 19 and 20. Hopefully next week I can talk a little bit better than I have been this week. But until then, have a blessed week. God bless.